YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and we're gonna get back into some more Total War Rome 2 online action. And in this particular battle, it is going to be my opponent playing as the Roxolani and myself as Baktria. Now, if someone picks a proper army, and assuming the enemy doesn't want to pull through, this can be a very challenging matchup for the Roxolani. So my opponent has brought 5 armored horse archers. It looks like he's got a pretty good lot of noble armored lancers, some armored lancers. We'll take a look. The noble horse archers are an interesting pick, and to be honest, they are pretty effective at slowing down the kill rate of something like archers, and they'll slow down the kill rate of slingers on them, but they're still going to be vulnerable to slingers. And as Baktria, most people would probably want to bring pikes. I decided not to because pikes are a little harder to maneuver. And that's a risk, because pikes are the only unit in the game right now that can't be pulled through by enemy cavalry. So the strategy that I'm using relies upon my spears to protect my eastern slingers, and in all honesty, with shock cav especially, my opponent could just straight up charge me from the front, pull through and get to my, my slingers. I would probably be able to kill his cavalry, or at least some of them, with my elephants and my own cavalry. But if he had enough cavalry left over and didn't use any ammo from his noble horse archers, he would very well be capable of winning the fight. Again, most people don't do this because they're just so worried about taking cavalry into spears, and that's left over from Shogun 2. But in all honesty, just a straight-on brutal front charge right now into my spearmen. And then that would give his men the momentum to break through these hoplites. They could then engage my slingers. My cav might come in, and so would my elephants, but again, he wouldn't have to use all his cavalry to do this, just some of it, and in the meantime he'd be able to pull up his own noble horse archers, potentially kill my elephants, or at least wear them down. Otherwise, this is going to be a tough fight. And he's going to go ahead and put some flaming arrows down on my general, but that's with his men within range. I'm more than happy to let him take a couple of volleys. It's not likely that he's going to run them amok on the first or even second volley, unless he has a larger group of men, and he completely loses a noble horse archer to my eastern slingers, which is not what he wanted. And over here I brought a couple of horse archers of my own, and I mainly did this just to limit the mobility of my opponent, because step factions usually just want to completely surround you, and by bringing my own mobile skirmishing component, it gives me the ability to taunt and follow his men and somewhat dissuade him from wanting to come all the way around the flank. And otherwise, my tactics are pretty straightforward. I'm just making a spear box for the most part with cavalry and my elephants to fill in the rear of it. And I did this because cavalry, especially Baktria noble horse, is going to be harder to pull through. So I'm actually more vulnerable from the front right now, in my opinion. Because, again, I still think that with a good solid charge from these step noble lancers, he could just pull straight on through my scale throw up hoplites, and he would decimate them pretty badly with a 76 charge bonus. I think. I need to test that and find out. Maybe that's something I can get online and do with someone one day, is just run through a test. But so my opponent starts to play kind of passive. Understandable. He's in kind of a conundrum right now. So again, unless he wants to pull through, which is still risky, very risky in this case, he's in a very tough scenario, and it doesn't leave him a whole lot of options. His general is a Sarmatian Royal Lancer. It's a pretty tough unit here. And all of his cavalry is very capable. And here I'm just going to use my horse archers, deliver a couple of quick shots. Again, just trying to goad his cavalry in closer to my lines. Don't really expect a whole lot of results from my horse archers here, because I knew they'd be outnumbered and probably outgunned. But again, this just allows me to take a couple of pot shots. And again, see how it kind of helps me control a flank? It drives his men back this way because he doesn't want my horse archers harassing him. So effectively, my horse archers kind of help shore up a certain area to where he doesn't want to come inside that radius, and he knows that I can retreat back to my spearmen and my slingers with my horse archers. So over here, my opponent gets a little too close. He's wanting to go for my slingers, and understandably so. His step lancers get destroyed, and his step noble lancers did just fine, actually. Well, I say that, this one didn't even get any kills. It must not have gotten the charge, and they're going to get chased off by my elephants. And I war cried. Yeah, I war cried this one, and it actually routs with 42 men left because of the scare effect and the war cry and then being outflanked. I wanted to chase it down with another cavalry unit, but he would be able to intercept me with his other step lancers, but being able to chase this unit off the field would have been great. However, I'm not really going to have that opportunity here. I decided to bring my horse archers up front, just see if I can play some games with his armored horse archers. Don't expect a whole lot again, but maybe I can lure them into range of my slingers, which is going to be my goal. So I'll just come forward, spread out into wide formation. He's in a thicker formation. Take a shot and then run, so that hopefully my shots will reach his men easier than his shots will reach me. See how I can pull back at the last second like that. And most of his shots fall short, whereas mine actually hit him. Didn't do a ton of damage, but again, it's a way to do this. So here my opponent kind of tests the, whether or not he can pull through a line. So he leads a charge in and against my Thurio spears, and then immediately pulls back out. It wasn't very successful in this case. You wouldn't want to blob together if you're going to do this charge. If he was going to charge against my hoplites and have it be effective, he'd want to hit them one-on-one in a fairly wide formation with his cavalry, and then immediately give a follow-through order to my slingers. That would leave my hoplites decimated, kill a great number of them, and my elephants, of course, would then come in to try and stop him, and that's the point at which I would bring my other cavalry and my horse archers around the back. Now, yes, I have my Bactrian noble horse there, but there's only so many of them, and again, I still think that would leave my my scale thorax hoplites decimated, and if he was able to split up his men and do that, he could then take these, like I'd take these noble horse archers in that line just like that, bring them up here, and he can lay down fire on my general from that point. And run my general amok in the midst of my own men, it would be very bad. And he would lose a lot of men, but if his attack was successful in destroying the most part of my slingers, at that point he would be in a pretty good position to potentially win. It is going to be hard for him to deal with so many scale thorax hoplites, though. But, I mean, Baktria against, Roxolani, I've got to give my, take my hat off to my opponent on this one. He took a tough choice. I picked Baktria first, and then he picked Roxolani. It wasn't a counter pick, I don't believe. I don't believe it was. So yeah, it's something that it takes some guts to bring an army like this. So I got to respect my opponent for that. And we'll watch how things finish. I'm going to do this again. Move up, take a pot shot, and run. And again, you can see most of his arrows fall short. He does get a few kills, but just me kind of playing with this horseman. Any ammo they expend on my mercenary Scythian horsemen is pretty much ammo wasted. And armored horse archers do have a fairly decent melee attack. They don't have any defense or any real charge bonus, but they do have a decent melee attack. If they get into sword units in late game, they can do kind of okay. So again, my opponent brings in a charge with his Steppe Noble Lancers. He gets a trample, but his men are just too bunched up, and it's not going to help you when you have a charge bonus and your men are bunched up. You need to be spread out just a little bit, not a ton to where your men are too thin, but you definitely want to be spread out. And I can bring my elephants in here. They're getting stuck within my own horsemen. But the scare effect happens, and I'm able to route his men back here, so the Roxolani take another pretty grievous loss there. And you'll see how I have my slingers protected to put a cone of fire down on the flank as well. You can see that cone of fire is luring in these Sarmatian horsemen. Let's watch this and see how well these 90 Thurio spears can hold off this kind of charge. So just watch. This is a melee cav too, not a shot cav. See that? Laid down the entire unit, and at this point he can easily move through. Yes, I bring my elephants, but you can see that that's how he gets to my slingers. And it destroyed half of the men that were left, and that was a melee cav. Think what a shot cav would do. So again, this is why I recommended that he go ahead and charge my men head on in the beginning. I only have one elephant unit. Yes, it's very powerful. Yes, it's going to cause you a lot of damage, but you don't really have a whole lot of other options. And again, look, you pretty much just laid down that Thurio spear. These guys did not get a good solid charge, and that's not what you want with these heavy shot cav. These guys need a good solid charge. His horse archers are going to lay down some flaming shot on my general, and I need to do something about that. But right now you can see that my horsemen are busy elsewhere, so I'm not really able to answer his horse archers. And I believe he made a mistake here when he's firing at my scale thorax hoplites. He should have been firing all of his archers at my elephants in flaming mode, get them to run amok, and they would have potentially run over a whole bunch of my own men. Instead, he takes his armored horse archers into my scale thorax hoplites here. Definitely not what you want to do. Once the charge is over my scale thorax hoplites, you can see you're going to start killing these guys pretty quickly because they have low melee defense. Melee cav can stand that a little longer because they've got a stronger melee defense rating. Like you can see, these guys have a pretty stout one at 49, and so they can last in this fight a little longer. But the longer the fight grinds out, the more it's going to go into the favor of the spearmen. At this point, some of my slingers came back from route. You can see he did rout all my slingers in that attack, even though it wasn't the best one. So that's again why I think that if he would have just laid down my hoplites from the front, gone on through. And some people might be saying like, oh, I hate that pull through. Well, in this case, that would honestly, in my opinion, be a legitimate pull through, because if his cav comes in and literally knocks my men to the ground and then walks on through, I don't see that as an illegitimate pull through. And when you're playing as a step faction, I think that that's honestly something that you just have to consider as a weapon in your arsenal. Now, I'm not saying I want to see people just pull on through like people did, or like Prussian Prince was in that video where he tested it, where he pulled through 3 hoplite walls. That's not what I like to see, but when a unit comes in and gives a legitimate charge and knocks people over and then continues on through, that's, in my mind, I don't see what's wrong with that. It's a legitimate claim. Heavy cavalry coming into the front of infantry, whether or not they can withstand the charge. If they do withstand it, then then they wouldn't have been able to pull through. If they get knocked over, then most certainly the cavalry could have broken through. I don't know if it happened a lot in historical battles, but I would assume that it has. And don't take this as me defending the pull-through exploits on Rome 2, because I'm not real thrilled with it, to be honest. I think that it should be a little different, but when your unit gets knocked off their feet, a pull-through would certainly be possible, because, I mean, what are you going to do when you're laying on the ground with a spear, a big heavy spear you can't hardly wield? But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this one. This was a bit different, so this is one way of fighting against a step faction. Again, I do think that step faction was perfectly capable of winning. If you look at all these heavy horsemen he had here, honestly, I would have just brought these guys from the front, brought my lighter horsemen from the rear, and then kept my armored horse archers in certain spots to hopefully punch through, and then I would have saved them for late game, because he has 5 of them. That's a considerable amount. And I think the damage he could have done on those initial charges, even though my elephants would have finished him off, and I would have ended up with some troops, the damage would have been pretty severe. And if he would have been able to just put a few flaming arrows in there on my general, run him amok, and that would have also dropped the morale of some of my men, potentially causing a mass rout as well. Yes, it's risky, but again, I think that just would have been his best effort. But then again, I don't know. I'm not perfect at the game. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.